Hello, hello, my green skins. And today we're going to be reviewing a classic horror movie that I haven't seen in a very long time. Like pretty much about 20 years now, actually, which is kind of funny. It's been one of those horror movies I like to watch, but I kind of forget it exists. The Howling 1, the very first 1981 Howling movie. And let's kind of get into how I found out about this movie. So, this movie has a special place in my heart because this is where I met one of my closest friends. Was this movie that I had? He's been one of my best friends for a very long time. Still one of my best friends. I met him when I was a teenager, and I met him during some interesting era back in the day. So what happened was a buddy of mine is a horror freak, loves horror movies. So when I was, a teenager around, 17, somewhere around there, I go to this local corner store. And I figured to myself, you know what? This place sells burgers and fries. Well, you know what? I got a couple extra bucks. This is right after doing a job with a certain group there. And I'm like, hey, I wonder what their food is. So I order some coney dogs. Coney burgers. My bad. And as I'm sitting there waiting, I'm just kind of in the back checking out to see what soda they have. I hear this scream, and I'm like, what the heck is that? And the woman at the store's like, oh, that's probably my son. He's watching his horror movies in the basement again. I said, oh well. I said, "Oh, maybe you think he'd care if I go look?" He's like, "Oh yeah, go ahead, go look, go see what he's watching. Tell him to turn it down." She says. So I go downstairs. He's like, this kid's like, hi, hi, both of us teenagers like, what are you watching? Oh, I'm watching The Howling. The Howling. I've never seen that. And he's like, well, let me tell you all about it. And this is how I got one of my best friends. And this is something you probably never do back in the day, but now, like you could do that back then, but now you'd never do this. But I got to meet a good friend who became a friend I knew for years. I still know the guy to this day. And yeah, so it has a little special place. This very first movie. Now, I gotta be honest here. While talking about this movie, I do have to say viewer discretion is advised. This movie is a horror, kind of a social political 80s horror movie that kind of takes a lot of places to stuff. And there are things in this movie that are yikes. And I can't deny those things in this movie are yikes. And it's kind of sad because I have to kind of come out and say this. It should be a 1981 horror movie. It should be expected that there's going to be stuff in this movie that should make people go, oh shit. Because horror movies back in the day, especially in the 80s, like early 80s, are violent as fuck. And this movie has some pretty aggressive stuff happening. I think the Howling 1, I believe, gets an MA reference. So this is an adult movie. I do warn people, holy crap, this is an adult movie. All right, so let's break down the actors. Okay, there are a couple actors of note in this movie, but we're going to start with the main lead, Dee Wallace, aka Karen White, who is the main lead for this. And she is not a bad actress for this role, and I believe, Dee Wallace is in a bunch of other stuff as well. The other big names in here to note is Patrick McCullen, Dr. George, aka the guy who played a part of the Avengers. If anyone, not the real Avengers, the British spy TV show. Then we got ourselves Elizabeth Brooks. Now Dick Miller, well, it's fucking Dick Miller. Dick Miller should be always, respected in that way. And one character that made me laugh, the big one, is Robert Picardo as Eddie Quist. aka the serial killer that starts this movie off. Fuck, this guy's in a lot of stuff, and I don't realize he's in a lot of stuff. Robert Picardo is in a lot of things. And it shocks me that every once in a while I run into this actor in stuff. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting. You got yourself a good cast, which there are more people here, but of course I'm only going to be focusing on some key ones. And yeah, no, let's get down to the acting and then the music for this, and then we'll get to the story. The acting in this movie is very okay, good and bad. Again, I'm going to be probably breaking down in the story some of the themes of this movie that are very hung out there to show everybody kind of what's what. But I mean, yeah, no, the acting is pretty good. Like, it shocks me. I keep being surprised that was Robert Picardo in this movie. A somewhat young Robert Picardo, which is kind of funny because you see him when he was younger. He kind of still kind of like he's an actor that still kind of looks good for being a man in at his age, what he is now compared to what he was back then. Like, he doesn't look that bad, but he looks almost exactly the same. He's one of those interesting actors that kind of has and they put him in a lot of prosthetics in this movie. And I kind of like it. Because that's definitely going to be talking about the visual arts coming up next. And I might even do that after the story, because that might be more of important stuff to talk about, because, that's going to be some good stuff. And yeah, no, he really does. The acting is good. It's not great. It's not perfect, but it's good. And they do kind of do a good job here all around. Next is going to be the music. And, well, I'm going to do the music right now. I might as well add this on. The music sucks for this movie. I see where they were going with this. They don't really add anything, but they don't really remove stuff. But they're using a lot of old music from old horror movies. I get the vibe that they're trying to tap into that old school horror, but it really doesn't work for this. This could have had better music, and this really doesn't. This has mediocre music at best. I am not a fan of this music at all, and I don't know what the logic was with this movie, and it comes to that music. I don't know. Something like more primal would have been better. Like, I just picture, the Raptor music and a set would work more for this movie. I don't know. Just something about this wasn't that good. But the acting was quite good. And like I said, we had some good Scream Queen moments here with people screaming and shouting and stuff. And it worked. And there were some really good visual effects for it. But the music in this was awful. Now let's break it down to the story. Has anyone ever played World of Darkness? Werewolf World of Darkness, I swear, stole stuff from the Howling. So the story starts off, our lead reporter, like it's starting in that era of the 80s where, reporters are kind of the junkie reporters that are like, oh, we're off to get the scoop no matter what. We got to find the scoop. We're going to get the scoop. We're going to get the secret knowledge and gather this stuff. So they're chasing down a serial killer. I think this is I'm pretty certain this is Robert Picardo's character, Eddie. And they're hunting his ass down, and they're trying to find him. And so they apparently the serial killer has hit off one of the lead female reporters. And as he's trying to try to showing her stuff and trying to get her to he's trying to get her to get to a certain location by using smiley faces, which I wonder if that whole, I know the smiley face came from somewhere. I don't know if it was a horror movie or what, but that smiley face thing seems to permeate a lot of stuff. So as she's being kind of being led to this really dark and evil situation. She goes into a porn store, and this is back in the day when porn stores were porn stores. Like, you could actually watch porno in like your own little private viewing area. Meanwhile, the cops are looking for her because they know that he's in danger, like she's in danger. Who knows if this guy's gonna murder somebody? Like, what's going on? So she ends up meeting Robert Picardo. By the way, his acting in this is really good. Like, you don't really get to see his face, but he's shockingly a good actor. Like, I keep picturing that more of a zany, over-the-top acting that he did in other stuff. This one's really good. And the cops end up shooting this guy to death. So she gets, basically, because of her, they caught the killer. Now they're going to have this, news at 11, big news. By the way, again, in that scene where she's dealing with in the porn store, there's some rough shit there. I can't deny it. I can understand why this gets an MA reference, even now to this day. I would say it's up there. Like, I would even go as far as Death Wish 2 deserves an MA. This one deserves an MA. Oh, no, excuse me. Anyway, she freezes, petrified, on a news reporting that she's going to do on this, but she just can't do it. So her fear of this happening, and that her being scared and having these emotional traumatic moments, a doctor, the Avengers guy, that's what I know him as. I know he's in other stuff, but he's the Avenger guy to me. I used to watch those. He is like, hey, we'll come to this place called the Colony. The Colony will help you out. So she ends up going to the Colony. And that's where stuff starts getting worse for her. As she goes to the Colony, she's meeting up with all these people, and they're cooking all these cow meat up, and they're eating all this food, and everything's going good. And they're eating nothing but meat at the Colony. That's where we get our introduction to a famous Green Queen, and he kind of shows everybody off, like, oh well, the old man over here wants to die. He wants to jump into the fire for some reason. No one really knows why. So she's trying to get off her own mental breaks, because for whatever reason, when she saw Picardo's character, Eddie's character, it messed her up. Meanwhile, her friends, another reporter and one of the producers to this news station, they're going around to try to find stuff. They find out where Eddie is. They kind of get the smiley face and see all these images of werewolf transformations and murders and all this stuff. So stuff's leading out. And meanwhile, other things are going on at this colony. The werewolf howling, the weird feelings and sensations, the whispering that some of the people are hearing. Stuff is getting interesting, which also leads to the main lead's love interest is being kind of pushed along to join the werewolf society. In walks a quick moment of them traveling to a bookstore, which I've used in D&D, and players have never figured this out. There's a bookstore in this place, and the bookstore here has like a little bit of everything. There's like nuns that come walking into this bookstore, and there's Satanists and other stuff, and all the like human sacrifice and all this weird crazy stuff that this guy talks about. A great horror guy. He was in Gremlins. If anyone doesn't know who this guy is, he's known more for Gremlins. That's like he was the guy that gets ran over by the snowplow but survives to show up in the second movie. Then we get the fun of this guy getting attacked by the werewolf. And we sort of start to see some of the werewolf effects. At this point, we're starting to see what they're capable of. This leads to her friend showing up to help out with the scenario and try to find out what the shenanigans are going on. This colony seems weird. Something's going on. This leads to some badass transformations, and the second girl ends up getting a situation where she's trying to figure out stuff, and they tape these werewolf howls late at night. And that's where they run into Picardo's character. And Picardo proceeds to murder her in a very violent way. They take time. And you get a really badass transformation sequence coming up. And then we get the next scene. The main lead is now in that area, and now she's getting attacked. Meanwhile, Buddy goes to get silver bullets, fucks off, grabs the silver bullets, and goes. And that's when he's driving down, rushing down. I think there's a quick reference to Jay Leno. I'm almost certain that's Jay Leno. At least it seems like that's Jay Leno, the voice. The voice sounds like a quick little nod to Jay Leno as they're driving away. This leads to fun moments where the realization, oh shit, my boyfriend might be a werewolf. Other things are going on. Things are getting more and more out of hand. Now they're basically trying to figure out how they're going to kill this woman, because it turns out the entire colony, spoiler alert, are werewolves. This leads to some pretty badass transformation moments. People getting shot with silver bullets and dying, and them escaping. Now, I'm not going to talk about the ending to this movie. You gotta fucking see it to believe it. It's awesome. Next, but there is a little fun moment. At the ending of this movie, the movie cuts to them making a burger rare. And the entire end credits is a burger being made. I'm not going to say anything else to that, but that is basically it. I don't want to spoil everything to this, but I am going to talk about the special effects to this movie. And that's going to be fun. And then we're going to have some World of Darkness fun. So the special effects to this are phenomenal. I mean, we got this and I believe Werewolf in London almost back to back. These are phenomenal movies, and they look absolutely freaking amazing for their era. Like, these look better than modern day visual effects in some ways. These are so well done, and I like these werewolves. Although you can tell they're a little fake, but I mean, for visual effects, this is beautiful. Especially when they chop off one of the werewolf's hands. You can slowly see the hand pulsating and stuff. That's cool shit. We don't see that. Like, horror visual effects, I think nowadays suck balls. Like, I really fucking hate them. They're not as crunchy, they're not as enjoyable. And I would say that these visual effects, something made in 1981, has better visual effects than other freaking movies. And almost to the point that I did not want to talk about this. I was debating about, I might not, you know what, fuck it. You guys were probably expecting visual effects. I'm not putting visual effects up. I'm putting the simple the poster up for the visual effects. I'm sorry, I don't want to show too much of this movie because it looks that good. Next, let's talk about some World of Darkness. So I'm not sure how much World of Darkness took from different horror movies, but there is some moments that remind me of World of Darkness. Like, there's something that the actress constantly can't seem to see the face. I've seen nothing. Werewolves in World of Darkness, I don't know if they changed this, mind you, because, I have no idea what clown show the fucking new version of World of Darkness is. I really don't give a fuck. But original Werewolf, you had moments, like, I think they had done something where you could be fucked up by not seeing a werewolf. Like, when you see a werewolf, it fucks you up to the point that you don't perceive it properly. And that's kind of cool that the Howling seems to have started that. I'm wondering how much old horror movies took that they took in the original World of Darkness. I would love to have an interview with the OG creators of World of Darkness and ask them, like the guys who created Werewolf the Apocalypse, Geist, and all the other shit. I'd love to have an interview with these guys and find out exactly where they took what from, because that's kind of cool. And that really didn't exist in folklore for werewolves. Next, let's go to the ratings, boys and girls. So, what am I going to rate The Howling? Well, there's a lot of stuff in this that are very social political. The idea of how the news reports stuff. The idea of, do they falsify stuff? Don't they falsify stuff? The idea of putting like some of the extreme stuff. Now there's movies that did it a little better. My favorite movie for that is A Nightcrawler. But there also is references to STDs in this movie. There's references to, the idea of cults. There's so much fun little bits in this movie. Now, I vaguely remember The Howling 2 and 3. That's kind of where my Howling movie kind of knowledge dropped off. So if I'm ever to review the other two movies, that would have to be where I'd stop it, because I really don't want to look at 4, 5. I think there's like 6 or 7 of them. I'm not going that far. But this movie has so many interesting ideas, and I like it. And I think they did a great job. It's not a perfect movie, but for a horror movie, it's really good. So I'm going to rate this based off my horror movie references. So as a regular movie, I'm going to give it about a 5. But for horror movie, I'm giving this a 7. Because unless it's like for the regular movie rating, like it's not John Carpenter's The Thing. Well, mind you, most movies John Carpenter did are surprisingly sleeper hits that ended up being better. And I think this movie deserves more of a cult following. Especially that ending. That ending's up there with the awesomeness that is like the Scanner ending, for example. This movie has a cool ending, and I kind of like how this movie ends. Alrighty, well, thank you very much for listening to my ravings on The Howling. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time on Orc War Chief Reviews. And have yourselves a very, very good day.